I used to think my grandmother was just superstitious, one of those old women who believed in signs, dreams, and whispers from the other side. But that morning, when I woke up shaking and drenched in cold sweat, I realized she'd been trying to save me. In my dream, she stood in the doorway of my childhood home, same pale blue dress she wore to every family gathering, same soft eyes, but this time, her voice was cold. "Clara, run from these people. Go to his mother's house. You'll see everything you need to see." Then I woke up. The alarm said 8 a.m., Saturday. Sunlight through the blinds, birds outside. Everything felt normal. Except for one thing, my heart wouldn't stop pounding. I got up, made coffee, stared at my reflection. 30 years old, 3 weeks before my wedding. My fiancé, Greg Thompson, was everything I thought I wanted. Charming, confident, with a calm voice that made every promise sound like a guarantee. We'd been together almost a year. He ran a small business, Technoservice LLC, selling industrial equipment. I was a financial controller for a construction company in downtown Chicago. Stable job, good apartment, quiet life. But that dream, I couldn't shake it. If your grandmother came to you in a dream the night before your wedding, would you listen or call it nonsense? Clara didn't believe, and that almost cost her everything. Stay with this story till the end and decide what you would have done. My grandmother had raised me after my father died. She worked 2 jobs, paid off a small house, never asked anyone for help. Her favorite saying was, "Trust people, but check their hands." She passed away 4 years ago, peacefully, in her sleep. I hadn't thought about her in months, so why now? Why that warning? My phone buzzed, a text from Greg. "Good morning, sweetheart. Mom wants to go over the reception menu today. I'll pick you up at 11. I hesitated. His mother, Margaret Thompson, had always made me nervous. Perfectly polite but cold, like every smile cost her effort. The first time I met her, she'd asked more questions than a job interview. "What's your income? Do you rent or own? How long have you been single?" Greg had laughed it off later, said she just worried because she raised him alone. I tried to believe that. By 11 sharp, his car pulled up. Greg stepped out in that same gray suit he always wore. Not fancy, but pressed, clean, like he wanted to be taken seriously. His dark hair had a touch of gray near the temples. It gave him that steady man look I used to think meant reliability. He kissed my cheek. "Morning, future Mrs. Thompson." I smiled back, though my stomach tightened. "Morning. Ready?" "Always." We drove through the quiet suburbs. He talked about a new client, some big contract he was about to land, but his details were always vague. A deal, a buyer, a shipment. Nothing concrete. We turned onto a narrow street lined with identical houses and stopped in front of a small brick one-story with white shutters. Margaret's house. Same place I'd visited months ago. Neat lawn, trimmed hedges, porch swing that never moved. She was already waiting by the door. 60-something, short silver hair, eyes sharp as needles. Her apron was spotless. She waved with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Clara, dear, come in. Lunch is ready." Inside, the smell hit. First, roasted chicken, cinnamon pie, lemon cleaner. The kitchen looked like a catalog photo. Everything perfectly arranged. On the table, 3 bowls of salad, soup steaming, glasses polished to shine. Margaret handed me a plate. "So how's the wedding planning? Did you confirm the venue?" "Yes, the banquet hall downtown." "Good. You should invite your co-workers, too. Never hurts to keep connections strong." Her tone was kind, but the words felt strategic. I nodded, took a sip of water, tried not to look nervous. She went on. "You're still working full-time, right?" "Yes." "And your apartment? You own it?" "Yes, I inherited it after my parents passed." She smiled, satisfied. "That's smart. Real estate always holds value." Greg shot me a quick look, almost like he didn't expect me to say that out loud. Lunch went on, polite and predictable, until she pulled out a thick old photo album. "I want to show Clara some family pictures." She opened it slowly. Old black and white photos. A man in uniform, young Margaret holding a baby, Greg as a teenager. Then, halfway through, my eyes caught something. A color photograph. Greg standing next to a young blonde woman in a bright summer dress. They were smiling. Her hand rested on his chest. Too familiar, too comfortable. "Who's that?" I asked. Margaret's smile froze for a split second. Then she flipped the page. "Oh, just some old acquaintance." Greg's jaw tightened. "Mom, can we not go through all that again?" "All what?" she asked lightly, still turning pages. He stood up suddenly. "We should go. I have calls to make." The shift in his tone made my skin prickle. Margaret said nothing, just watched him, then looked at me with a faint, unreadable smile. We left a few minutes later. In the car, silence hung between us. I stared out the window. Finally, I said, "That woman in the photo, who is she?" He didn't look at me. "No one important." "She looked close to you." He laughed softly, but his voice was tight. "It's ancient history, Clara. Don't start digging up ghosts." Ghosts. The word stung. When I got home that evening, I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop. I don't know what I was looking for. Reassurance, maybe. Something to quiet that voice whispering that my grandmother's dream had been right. But the whisper only grew louder. And at that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. I'd start checking Greg's stories, one by one. I first met Greg Thompson on an ordinary Tuesday. Nothing about that morning hinted that my life was about to spin out of control. He came into my office with a folder full of invoices, a polite smile, and a voice that made every sentence sound like a promise. I was checking balance sheets, barely looked up when he said, "Hi, I'm here to see the director." But when I did look up, I noticed things people usually miss. The way he stood, relaxed, confident. His gray jacket fit perfectly. His shoes were polished. A small detail, but it said discipline. He waited for almost half an hour. We talked. I can't remember exactly how we started, only that 10 minutes in, it felt like we'd known each other for years. He asked about my work, listened without pretending. That's what hooked me. He didn't just talk, he heard. Before leaving, he said, "You seem like the kind of woman who doesn't let anything slip through the cracks." I laughed. "That's literally my job." He smiled. "Then maybe one day I'll trust you with my books too." That's how it began. The next week, he showed up again. Forgot one document. Another week later, he invited me for coffee. He said he rarely had time for himself, that his business kept him glued to spreadsheets. I could relate. Two workaholics, both tired of eating alone. We met after work in a quiet cafe near the river. The air smelled of cinnamon and rain. I told myself it was just coffee, nothing more. But when he started telling stories about his startup, about working late nights in a small warehouse on the edge of town, I wanted to believe every word. He said he imported heavy equipment for construction companies. He didn't brag about money, but hinted that things were going well. A few good clients, stable contracts, nothing flashy, just steady work. I thought that was rare. I dated men who were loud about their ambitions and silent about their failures. Greg was different. Calm, reasonable, grounded. We started seeing each other once a week. Movies, dinners, walks along the lake. Every date ended the same way, with that half smile and a "text me when you're home." After a few months, he introduced me to his friends, two men from his business circle. They spoke the same polished language. Deals, clients, opportunities. I didn't understand half of it, but it sounded legitimate. He never talked much about his family, though. Whenever I asked about his father, he said, "He passed when I was a kid," and quickly changed the subject. About his mother, he always said the same. "She's the strongest woman I know. Raised me alone. She's my world." It sounded noble, until I met her. But before that, there was the ring. He proposed exactly 6 months after our first coffee. Not at a restaurant, not on a vacation, just at home. It was a Friday night, and I came back from work exhausted. The lights were dim. He stood in the kitchen doorway with a small velvet box. "Clara," he said, voice steady, "I know what I want. You." The ring wasn't huge, but it fit perfectly. I cried. He smiled. And for the first time in years, I thought maybe I could stop fighting life and let someone else take care of me. After that, things moved fast. We set a date, late June. Nothing fancy, 30 guests, small ceremony. His mother offered to handle the food. I didn't mind. She seemed excited. Greg started spending more time away meeting clients. Sometimes I wouldn't hear from him all day. Then he'd call around midnight, tired but cheerful. "Sorry, babe. Long day. You know how it is." I knew how it was. Business, work, stress. I didn't question it. He gave me a schedule. Mondays and Thursdays at the office, Tuesdays at the warehouse, weekends with me. Predictable. Reliable. Except there were moments, tiny cracks in the perfection. Once I noticed how fast he grabbed his phone when it buzzed during dinner. He smiled, typed something, turned it face down. Client. Another time, he canceled a date last minute, said he'd got stuck in a meeting. But when he called, I heard loud music behind him. He laughed it off. Some guys celebrating a deal. And yet, every doubt vanished when he looked at me. That calm, confident stare made me feel foolish for even thinking he could lie. That's how people like Greg operate. They don't convince you, they let you convince yourself. I remember one night we talked about the future. He said, "Once we're married, I want to invest in something bigger. Maybe move out of the city, start fresh." I smiled. "Where?" He shrugged. "Wherever we can build something that's ours." It sounded romantic. Later, I'd realize he meant something very different by ours. A week before that dream, before my grandmother's warning, we sat on my balcony watching the lights of Chicago flicker in the distance. Greg wrapped his arm around me and whispered, "You know, I've never met someone like you. You make me feel safe." I didn't know it then, but he was already studying me. My habits, my finances, the passwords on my desk. Because when people like Greg say, safe, they mean secured. Still, that night, I believed him completely. He kissed me goodnight, told me he'd pick me up tomorrow to meet his mother again. "She wants to go over the reception menu." I nodded, half asleep, half dreaming. And as I drifted off, I thought about my grandmother's words. Run from these people. But I didn't run. I put on my best dress, smiled, and got into his car. Because back then, I still believed love could explain everything, even the things that didn't make sense. The first time I met Margaret Thompson, I told myself she was just old-fashioned. The second time, I stopped pretending. Greg had warned me that his mother could be a bit intense, but I wasn't prepared for how precise, how calculated her kindness felt. When we pulled up to her house that Sunday, she was already standing outside, apron tied neatly, hair pinned, eyes alert. Her small frame barely moved, yet her presence filled the entire porch. "Clara, dear, you look lovely," she said, kissing the air near my cheek. Come in, everything's ready." Inside, the smell was overwhelming. Roasted chicken, garlic, lemon cleaner, every corner spotless. Not a single misplaced item. We sat at the table, Greg beside me. Margaret poured soup into white porcelain bowls, never spilling a drop. "So," she said, "how's work treating you?" "Good," I replied. "Busy, but I like it." "Financial controller, right? Stable job, steady income." She said it the way people say, "Good breeding." I nodded. She smiled. "Good. Stability matters in a marriage." Greg tried to steer the conversation elsewhere, but she wasn't done. "You own your apartment, yes?" "Yes, ma'am." "Downtown?" "Yes." Her smile widened, polite but sharp. Real estate always holds value. Greg's lucky to have found a practical woman. He chuckled softly. "Mom, I'm just saying," she interrupted. "Some girls only bring debts and drama into a marriage. Clara's different." The way she said it, like she was evaluating property, made my stomach tighten. After lunch, she brought out an album, old black and white photos, a man in a military uniform, a boy with serious eyes, Greg as a teenager. Then, near the end, a bright photo, full color. Greg standing close to a young blonde woman in a summer dress. The woman's hand rested on his chest, her smile radiant. "Who's that?" I asked. Margaret froze for half a heartbeat. Then she turned the page. "Oh, just a friend. We've known many people over the years." Greg's hand tightened around his glass. "Mom, we should go." She ignored him. "That was taken long ago." "How long?" I asked quietly. Her tone hardened. "Does it matter?" Greg stood. "We really have to leave." The room fell silent. Margaret's smile returned, but her eyes were colder. "Of course, dear. Thank you for visiting. I'll see you soon." As we walked to the car, Greg muttered, "Don't read into it. My mom loves her photo albums. She doesn't throw anything away." "Who was she?" He sighed. "An ex. From years ago. Nothing serious." But there was a hesitation, a flicker. Something not quite right. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing that picture. The way Margaret turned the page so fast, like hiding something, and the way Greg's jaw clenched when I asked. The next morning, I met my friend Laura for coffee. She'd been my sounding board since college. Practical, grounded, allergic to red flags. After I told her everything, she stirred her latte slowly. "Clara, you sure you know what you're getting into?" "Of course. He's great. Just complicated." "Complicated is fine. Secretive isn't." "He's not secretive. He's private." She raised an eyebrow. "Private men don't flinch when you ask about their exes, and they don't keep their mothers as gatekeepers." I sighed. "You're overthinking it." She leaned forward. "Then do me one favor. Check if his business actually exists." I frowned. "What?" "Techno service, right? Google it. See if it's registered. If it's real, you'll sleep better. If not—" I laughed nervously. "You sound like a detective." "Better paranoid than bankrupt," she said, half joking. I went home and opened my laptop. It was just curiosity, I told myself. Nothing more. I typed Techno Service LLC Chicago into the search bar. Nothing. Tried Techno Service Industrial Equipment. Still nothing. I searched the Illinois Business Registry. No listing. I tried under his full name. No results. My chest tightened. Maybe he used a different name? Or maybe the company was new. I searched again, deeper, more desperate. Nothing. The next day, I decided to visit the address Greg once mentioned, an office in the industrial district. The area looked like a ghost town. Half-abandoned warehouses, faded signs, old trucks. I drove up and down the street 3 times. No techno service. An old guard in a booth looked up when I stopped. "You looking for someone?" "Yeah," I said. "A company called Techno Service." He scratched his head. "Never heard of it. There's a Techno Steel down the road, but that's been closed for years." I forced a smile. "Thanks anyway." Back in the car, my hands were shaking. When I got home, Greg was already there, waiting by the door, smiling. "Hey, babe, you look tense. Everything okay?" I swallowed hard. "Yeah, just tired." He hugged me, kissed my forehead. "You worry too much. I keep telling you. Everything's fine." I nodded, but in my chest, something cracked. That night, I sat by the window, watching the city lights blur through my tears. If I'd listened to my grandmother's voice then, if I'd run, everything that followed could have been avoided. But I didn't, because Greg Thompson still knew exactly how to make me doubt myself. And by the next weekend, his mother had already planned our next visit. I woke up Monday morning trying to convince myself it was all in my head. People exaggerate, I told myself. Maybe Greg just wasn't a paperwork kind of guy. Maybe his company used a different name, or maybe he was just being private. But deep down, something had shifted. I could feel it, like a loose thread under the surface of everything that looked perfect. At the office, numbers blurred on my screen. I couldn't focus. By noon, I opened my phone and reread Laura's message. If a man's life doesn't add up on paper, it won't add up in real life either. That night, Greg came over. He looked calm, cheerful even, bringing takeout and a bottle of wine. "Hey, beautiful. Missed you." I smiled weakly. "I missed you too." We ate on the couch, watching a mindless show, but I couldn't relax. Every little thing stood out. The way he kept his phone face down, how he smiled without ever showing his teeth, the faint smell of someone else's perfume on his jacket. I waited for the right moment. "Greg," I said quietly. "What's your office address again?" He glanced at me. "Why?" "I just want to send something there. Maybe lunch. Surprise your team." He hesitated. "Don't. We're remodeling the office right now. It's a mess. Dust, cables, paint cans. Not a good surprise zone." "What about the warehouse?" "Same thing. Construction everywhere." Too smooth, too practiced. He leaned closer, smiling. "Why the sudden interest in my office? You trying to keep tabs on me?" I laughed nervously. "No, just curious." He studied me for a second longer, then reached for my hand. "Clara, trust me. My work is stressful enough without you worrying about details." He kissed my forehead and turned back to the TV. But in that kiss, something broke. I realized he was deflecting, not protecting me, just hiding. The next day, I decided to stop guessing. I told my boss I needed a personal day, grabbed my keys, and drove to the industrial district again. Morning fog hung over empty lots and cracked pavement. I stopped by the same guard booth. "Excuse me," I said. "Are you sure there's no techno service here? Maybe under a different name?" The old man squinted. "Nope. I've been here 15 years. I know every business on this street. No one by that name." My pulse quickened. I thanked him, got back into the car, and sat there gripping the wheel. Either Greg was lying, or I was losing my mind. That night, he came over again, smiling like nothing had changed. "How's my favorite bride-to-be?" I decided to test him. "Work was good," I said casually. "I was actually near your office today." His eyes flickered, just for a second, but enough. "Oh, really? What were you doing there?" "I thought maybe I'd bring you coffee, but I couldn't find the building." He laughed softly, but the sound didn't reach his eyes. "You should have called. I'd have met you." I met his gaze. "You said it was on Industrial Avenue, right?" "Yeah, near the old train yard." "I drove that street twice. There's no sign, no office." He leaned back, crossed his arms. "Clara, are you checking up on me?" "I'm just trying to understand." "Understand what?" "Where you work." His jaw tightened. "You think I'm lying to you?" I didn't answer. Silence filled the room, heavy and dangerous. Finally, he stood up. "You know what? I don't have to prove anything. If you don't trust me, maybe this isn't going to work." I swallowed hard. "Greg," he grabbed his jacket, "call me when you decide what you believe." The door slammed behind him. I stood there shaking, staring at the wine glasses on the table. One of them still had lipstick on the rim. Mine. The other was untouched. For the first time, I felt real fear. Not of losing him, but of what I might already be part of. I barely slept. Every sound outside my apartment made me jump. By morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to talk to someone who could think straight. Laura showed up half an hour later with coffee and that face that said, "I told you so." "So," she said, "he blew up when you asked a simple question. That's not normal, Clara." "I know." "And you still think he's just private?" I sighed. What if there's a logical reason? Maybe he's embarrassed his business isn't doing well. Embarrassment doesn't explain fake addresses. Her voice softened. "Clara, listen. Before you marry anyone, you should know exactly who he is. Let's check him out properly." "Check how?" "I know a guy. Private investigator. Discreet. Fast. He can find everything. Marriages, debts, past businesses. If Greg's clean, you'll have peace of mind." I hesitated. "That sounds extreme." Laura leaned closer. "Extreme is marrying a stranger." That line hit me. By evening, I had the investigator's number written on a napkin tucked deep inside my bag, but I didn't call. Not yet. Instead, I sat on the couch scrolling through photos of Greg, our first dinner, our trip to Michigan, the night he proposed. He looked so real in those moments, so human. But I couldn't shake one thought. If everything was true, why did I feel like I was dating a ghost? Just before midnight, my phone buzzed. A message from Greg. "Sorry for how I acted. Long day. I love you." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying, "I love you too." It wasn't the truth, just a test. And when 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, I realized he was hesitating too. Greg didn't text me the next morning. Not a single message. No apology. No call. By evening, I was pacing the apartment, checking my phone every few minutes, convincing myself not to text first. At 9:30, my screen finally lit up. "Greg, can I come over?" I typed, deleted, typed again, then finally sent, "Yes." When he arrived, he looked tired but strangely calm, like someone who'd rehearsed what to say. He put down a paper bag with takeout. "Didn't want to fight anymore," he said. "I hate when we're like this." I forced a smile. "Me too." He sat, opened the boxes, poured wine into our glasses. His tone was gentle, deliberate. "You asked me about the business, about the office. I should have told you everything sooner." I waited. "I don't have a fixed office. The company's more remote now. Most clients are handled online. I meet them in person if needed, usually at cafes or sites." I frowned. "Then why say you had a warehouse?" "Because people respect a man with a building more than a man with a laptop," he said quietly. "I didn't want to look small in your eyes." It was a clever line. Too clever. I nodded slowly. "You could have just told me." I was embarrassed. He reached across the table, touched my hand. "You mean a lot to me, Clara. I just wanted you to be proud." His voice softened. Warm. Believable. That was his skill. Not persuasion, but precision. He said exactly enough to pull you back in. "Then show me something real," I said. "Your registration, your tax ID, anything." He smiled faintly. "At my place. Documents are in a drawer. I'll show you next time." I exhaled, pretending to believe. "Okay." The next morning, before I could decide whether to press him, my phone buzzed again. A message from Margaret. "Margaret, Greg told me about your argument. Come see me, dear. I think we should talk." The idea made my stomach twist, but curiosity won. Her house looked the same as ever. Perfect lawn, closed curtains. She opened the door before I even knocked. "Clara," she said softly, "I'm glad you came." We sat at the kitchen table. Tea, biscuits, same scent of lemon cleaner. "Greg told me you doubted him," she began. "I understand. In your position, I might have done the same." "I just wanted clarity," I said. She nodded, opened a drawer, and pulled out a brown folder. "Then here's clarity." Inside, a set of papers. A certificate of registration for Technoservice LLC, copies of tax forms, invoices, contracts, each page perfectly stamped. "See," she said gently, "he's honest, just insecure. He works hard but hates that it never looks impressive." I turned the pages. Everything looked legitimate. Margaret smiled. "You're marrying a good man, Clara. Don't let suspicion poison that." I left her house feeling half ashamed, half relieved. Maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe love really was simpler than I made it. That night, I called Greg. "I'm sorry," I said. "I shouldn't have doubted you." He paused, then exhaled. "I shouldn't have lied. Let's start over." We did. Or at least, I thought we did. A week passed quietly. We picked the wedding cake, confirmed the guest list, even joked about honeymoon plans. The world felt stable again, until the phone rang, an unknown number. "Hello?" Silence. Then a woman's voice, calm but trembling. "Is this Clara Mitchell?" "Yes." "My name's Lisa. You don't know me, but I know Greg Thompson." The room seemed to shrink. "Who are you?" I was his wife. My pulse slammed. That's not possible. He's never been married. She let out a short, bitter laugh. That's what he told me too. I gripped the phone tighter. What do you want? To warn you, don't marry him. Her words came fast, clipped, shaking. He did the same thing to me 2 years ago. Said he loved me. Said we'd build a business together. He convinced me to sell my condo. Said we'd invest the money. The day after the sale cleared, he vanished. Number disconnected. Office empty. Police couldn't find a trace. I tried to breathe. Do you have proof? I have memories and a restraining order that never reached him because he disappeared before they could serve it. My legs felt weak. I sat down. How did you get my number? I saw your engagement photo on social media. Same smile, same man. I couldn't let you make the same mistake. I swallowed hard. If this is a lie, I'll report you. She sighed. Then report me. But you'll wish you hadn't ignored this call. The line went dead. I stared at my reflection in the black screen of my phone, pale, shaking, unrecognizable. Every cell in my body screamed, "Call Greg," but something stopped me. Instinct. I opened my laptop and searched. Greg Thompson plus fraud plus Chicago. No results. Then Gregory Thompson marriage license. And there it was. A line on a public record site. Gregory R. Thompson married Lisa Howard 2 years ago. Filed, never annulled. My stomach turned. I clicked through again. Same names, same date. I whispered to the empty room. He's married. The next hour passed in fragments, shaking hands, cold tea untouched, my phone buzzing twice with messages from Greg that I couldn't bring myself to open. When I finally did, the screen read, "Greg, dinner tomorrow? Mom wants to celebrate. She says we're almost at the finish line." Finish line. I typed back one word, sure. Because if I'd learned anything that night, it was this. You can't expose a liar until you know exactly what he's hiding. And tomorrow, I'd start finding out. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that woman's voice again. Calm but cracked, like someone who'd already lost everything. Don't marry him. By sunrise, I'd replayed our entire relationship in my head 100 times. Every unanswered question, every evasive smile, every time he'd turned his phone over. Suddenly, the puzzle fit together. But the picture terrified me. At 8 a.m, Greg called. "Good morning, sweetheart. You okay?" His voice was so warm, so ordinary, it made me want to scream. "I'm fine," I said. "You sound tired." "Didn't sleep well." "Wedding nerves." He laughed softly. "Mom's making breakfast. She asked if you could come by around 10. I hesitated. "Sure." When he hung up, I sat motionless for a minute, staring at my reflection in the mirror. Who was this woman with dark circles and trembling hands? Who was she marrying? By 10, I was at Margaret's house again. The table was set as always, perfectly folded napkins, spotless cups, a bouquet of fake roses. Greg sat at the table, scrolling through his phone. Margaret smiled. "You look pale, dear. Something wrong?" "No, just a long night." She tilted her head, studying me. "Don't let stress ruin your skin before the wedding." I forced a smile. "I'll try." Greg reached for my hand. "We're okay, right?" "Of course," I said. "Why wouldn't we be?" He squeezed gently, his eyes searching mine. "Because I love you, Clara, and I want us to start clean. No secrets." That line, "no secrets," almost made me laugh. Margaret stood. "I'll leave you two alone." As soon as she left, Greg leaned closer. "You've been distant. Did someone tell you something?" I froze. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. Maybe you heard something stupid. You've been looking at me like I'm a stranger." I swallowed hard. "Greg, is there anything you haven't told me?" He smiled faintly. "You mean besides how much I adore you?" It sounded rehearsed, polished. When I didn't respond, his tone hardened. "If you're going to start doubting me again, maybe we should take a break." That word, break, hit like a slap. "You mean call off the wedding?" "I mean stop acting like I'm your enemy." I'm not. Then trust me. His stare was cold now, commanding, the same expression I'd seen in Margaret's eyes. I nodded slowly. Okay, I trust you. He relaxed, smiled, kissed my cheek. Good. That's all I needed to hear. When I left the house, my hands were shaking. I walked 3 blocks before realizing I was holding my phone so tight my fingers ached. That's when it buzzed again. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? A woman's voice. Calm, low, urgent. You talked to Lisa, didn't you? My heart stopped. Who is this? Someone who knows what he did. Lisa called me after you hung up. Who are you? My name's Rachel. I was supposed to marry Greg before you. My throat went dry. What do you want? To help you, but not over the phone. This is insane. Meet me tonight, 7 p.m. Cafe East Side near Lincoln Park. Sit by the window, order tea, I'll find you. Why should I? Because if you don't, you'll end up like Lisa. The line cut. I sat there frozen on the sidewalk while cars passed and leaves brushed my shoes. My mind spun. 2 women? 2? I checked Greg's location through the shared app he'd insisted we use for safety. Offline. At 7, I was at Cafe Eastside. It was almost empty. I ordered tea, sat by the window, and waited. 10 minutes later, a woman walked in. Late 30s, pale, thin, nervous. She wore a dark coat and carried a folder. When our eyes met, she nodded once and sat down across from me. Rachel? She nodded. You said you were supposed to marry him. I was, until I found out who he really is. I leaned closer. Who? Gregory Robert Thompson, yes. But that's not his only name. He's used at least 3. Sometimes he's Greg Mason, sometimes Robert Glenn. Always a small company, always a big dream, always a woman who believes him. My pulse hammered. And what does he do? She opened the folder. Inside, photos, printouts, receipts. He targets women with property or savings, charms them, promises investment. Once they transfer money, he disappears. He's done it for years, sometimes alone, sometimes with help. Help? His mother. She handles the documents, the contracts, the fake business registrations. She's the real brain. I stared. Margaret? Rachel nodded. That's her. She uses the same kitchen for meetings, keeps everything off record. I pressed my palms to the table. You're saying she's part of it? She's half of it. They call it a family business. The words hit like a physical blow. Rachel leaned in. He's charming, right? Soft voice, gentle eyes, never raises his tone. That's how he keeps you from noticing the lies. I didn't believe Lisa either until the bank froze my account. I need proof, I said quietly. You'll get it, but don't tell him you know anything yet. She handed me a flash drive. Start here. What's on it? Copies of his fake contracts, company names, emails. You'll recognize his writing. I stared at the small metal stick between my fingers, light, harmless looking, yet heavier than any truth I'd ever held. Rachel stood. He doesn't stop until you're broke or broken. Choose which one you'll be. Then she walked away. I didn't move for minutes, just sat there, staring at the tea gone cold, the flash drive in my hand reflecting the city lights. By the time I got home, my resolve had turned to ice. Tomorrow, I'd plug it in. Tomorrow, I'd see if everything she said was true. But that night, as I turned off the lights, my phone buzzed again. Greg. Can't sleep without you. Love you, Clara. I stared at the message, heart pounding, thumb hovering over reply. Then I typed, love you too. Because if Rachel was right, I'd need him to believe I still did. I didn't plug the flash drive in right away. It sat on my kitchen table all night like a loaded gun, and I couldn't touch it. I just stared at it thinking, what if Rachel is lying? What if this is some crazy revenge thing? But another voice whispered back, what if she's not? By morning, I gave in. I turned on my laptop, waited for the screen to glow, and pushed the drive in. A single folder appeared. Client files. Inside, PDFs, screenshots, scanned documents. The first one was a contract. Technoservice LLC. Same logo Greg had shown me months ago. Only the client name froze me in place. Lisa Howard. The same Lisa who had called me 2 nights ago. The document said she had invested $90,000 into partnership expansion. Signed by Gregory R. Thompson. Date, 2 years ago. Next file, a scanned check. His signature again. Another client name, Rachel Evans. It was like watching my future written out, line by line in someone else's past. Halfway through the folder, I found photos. Pictures of Greg with both women. Smiling at restaurants, standing in front of the same car, the same gestures, the same tone in every frame. Only the faces beside him changed. I shut the laptop. My chest hurt so bad I thought I might faint. The phone rang. I didn't want to answer, but I did. Hello? It was Rachel again. You saw the files, didn't you? Yes. Then you know, I whispered. He used the same signature, the same contracts. He doesn't change much. He doesn't need to. Most people never look that close. What happened to Lisa after it all? She tried to sue, but without proof that the money was stolen, the police called it a civil dispute. He's careful. Never leaves direct traces. Where is she now? Out of the city. She doesn't talk about it anymore. I sat on the floor, my back against the couch. So what do I do? Rachel's voice softened. Don't confront him yet. He'll twist everything. He's done this for years, Clara. You need someone on your side. I don't want the police yet, I said. Not until I'm sure. Then talk to someone you trust, quietly, and keep copies of everything. He deletes things when he panics. I promised I would. But even as I hung up, I knew who I had to see first. Laura. She opened the door, still holding her morning coffee. One look at my face, and she said, "Oh God, what happened?" I dropped the flash drive onto her table. Everything. He's been married before. More than once. He's a scam artist, and his mother helps him. Laura froze, then grabbed her laptop. We went through the files together. Every time she clicked, my stomach twisted tighter. When she finished, she looked up. This guy's professional. He's been running this pattern for years. I know. Then we need evidence that connects him directly. Bank transfers, messages, anything in your name. I nodded. There's one thing. He once asked me for a copy of my ID, said it was for travel paperwork. He still has it. Laura's expression hardened. He could be setting you up. You need to act now. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Greg. Morning, babe. Thinking of you. Dinner tonight? Laura glanced at the screen. You're not going. I have to, I said quietly. He can't know I found out. She shook her head. Clara, that's dangerous. I'll be fine. I just need to see how he acts. That evening, I dressed carefully. Nothing new, nothing noticeable. When Greg arrived, he was all smiles again, the perfect fiancé. You look beautiful, he said, kissing my cheek. I missed you. We ate at his favorite restaurant. Dim lights, jazz playing, polished silverware. He talked about the wedding, about invitations, about a new opportunity coming up. I nodded, pretending to listen. Every word felt rehearsed. Halfway through dessert, he reached across the table and took my hand. You believe in fate, right? I looked up slowly. Why? Because sometimes I think we were meant to meet, like everything before was leading to this. His thumb traced small circles on my wrist. My skin crawled. Do you ever think about your past? I asked. He smiled faintly. Not really. The past doesn't matter. What matters is the future we're building. The future, I repeated, forcing a smile. He nodded. You'll see. Everything will fall into place soon. For the first time, I noticed something in his eyes. Not warmth, not charm, but calculation. Like a chess player already seeing 10 moves ahead. When he dropped me off later, he kissed my forehead and whispered, I'll come by tomorrow. Big surprise. I smiled. Can't wait. The moment he drove off, I ran upstairs and shut the door. I called Laura. He said he has a surprise. That can't be good, she said. Be careful. I opened my laptop and copied every file from the flash drive onto a hidden folder in the cloud. Then I texted Rachel. Did he ever give you a surprise? She replied 2 minutes later. Yes, a gift. It was a contract in my name. He said it was an investment for us. It turned out to be a loan he took out using my credit. My stomach dropped. The next morning, Greg texted, "Be ready at 10. I'm picking you up. Big news." I stared at the message, my heart pounding. I didn't know it yet, but that surprise would bring me face to face with the last woman who ever trusted him, and the truth that would finally shatter his perfect story. Because when I got into that car, I wasn't going to meet Greg's business partner. I was going to meet his next victim. He showed up exactly at 10 like he'd promised. Same gray jacket, same clean shave, same polite knock on my door. Everything about him screamed predictability. The kind of predictability only liars perfect. "Morning, beautiful," Greg said, smiling like the last week had never happened. "Ready for your surprise?" "Where are we going?" "You'll see." He opened the passenger door like a gentleman, and I stepped inside, heart pounding. The drive was silent for the first few minutes. His phone buzzed twice. He ignored it. Finally, I asked, "Who's calling?" "Work." He smiled. "Don't worry about it." We left the city, passing through quiet suburbs, then long stretches of forest road. It felt like the world was shrinking around us. I thought of Rachel's warning. He doesn't stop until you're broke or broken. "Greg," I said, forcing my voice steady, "where are we going?" He smiled again. "Just trust me." 2 words that now sounded like a threat. After an hour, he slowed down near a small town. Old houses, 1 diner, a closed gas station. He parked in front of a beige house with blue shutters. "We're here." "What is this place?" "You'll see," he said again, and led me up the steps. The door opened before we knocked. A woman stood there, early 40s, tired eyes, dark hair tied back. She looked startled when she saw me. "Clara, this is Xenia," Greg said casually. "She's an old friend. We're talking about a new business deal." Her eyes flickered, almost like she wanted to speak but didn't dare. I smiled politely. "Nice to meet you." She nodded slightly. "You too." Greg stepped inside, gesturing toward the living room. "You two chat. I'll grab the files from the car." The door closed behind him. For a few seconds, silence. Then Xenia turned to me. "You shouldn't be here." Her voice was a whisper, trembling. "What do you mean?" "He told me you were just a client. But I know the pattern. He brings women here before he takes everything." My throat tightened. "You know him?" "I did." Her hands shook as she poured coffee into 2 cups. "I met him in Milwaukee. He called himself Robert Glenn back then, said he'd help me open a small business. I gave him money, he disappeared. 2 months later, I saw him on the news. Different name, different woman." "How did you find him again?" "He found me," she said quietly. 3 weeks ago, out of nowhere, said he wanted to make things right. I didn't believe him, but he kept showing up. Then yesterday he said he wanted me to meet his fiancée. I didn't realize that was you." I gripped the edge of the table. "Why didn't you call the police?" She laughed softly, a sound with no joy in it. "You think they care? He uses fake companies, fake documents, always makes sure the money looks voluntary. No crime, they say, just bad luck." "Why did you agree to see him again?" Her eyes dropped. "Because he still has something that's mine." "What?" "My house." The front door opened. Greg stepped back in, cheerful. "Everything good here?" Xenia nodded quickly, pretending to smile. "Perfect." He handed her a folder. "Here's the paperwork. I'll need your signature later. We'll finalize next week." She nodded again. "Sure." "Clara," he said, "why don't you go see the backyard? It's beautiful this time of year." I froze. "Maybe later." He smiled, but his tone hardened. "Go ahead, sweetheart. I'll be right out." I stepped onto the porch. The air was cold, sharp. I heard voices inside, muffled, fast, Xenia's tone pleading, his low and firm, then silence. When he came out a few minutes later, he was alone. "She's got a headache," he said. "We'll go." We drove back toward the city. My mind was spinning. "She seems scared," I said. He shrugged. "She's unstable. She's been obsessed with me for years. I helped her once, and now she won't leave me alone." I didn't respond. Halfway home, I turned my head slightly and saw it. A faint scratch on his wrist, fresh and red. "What happened to your hand?" He smiled. "Old scar. You're seeing things." We didn't speak again until he dropped me off. "Next week," he said. "Everything will make sense." Then he drove away. That night, I couldn't sit still. I kept replaying Xenia's words. "He still has something that's mine." At midnight, I called Laura. I met another woman. She said she lost everything to him. Laura's voice was firm. "Then we find her again, get her story recorded. She's terrified. He's controlling her somehow. Then we protect her. Send me the address." The next morning, we drove back to the small town. Same house, same shutters. But when we got there, the front door was open, the living room empty, coffee cups still on the table. The neighbor across the street watched us cautiously. "You looking for the lady who lived there?" "Yes, Xenia. She left early this morning. 2 people came by in a black car. She got in and never came back." My stomach dropped. "Did you see where they went?" He shook his head. "Toward the highway." Laura grabbed my arm. "We need to go to the police." I shook my head. "No, not yet. We need proof first. We need to know where she went." We drove back in silence, the landscape blurring past. That evening, a message arrived from an unknown number. "Unknown. You're digging in the wrong places. Stop while you still can." No name, no signature, just those words. And for the first time since it began, I realized this wasn't just about love or money anymore. It was about survival. That message stayed on my phone like a shadow. I read it again and again until the words felt carved into my skin. "Stop while you still can." Laura wanted to go straight to the police. I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to know exactly what I was up against. That's when I remembered the name she'd given me weeks earlier. The private investigator, Michael Reed. She'd used him once in a work dispute, said he was the quiet kind of ruthless. I called the number on the napkin. He answered on the second ring. "Reed. Hi, my name's Clara. Laura Green gave me your number. I need to find someone, and maybe protect myself." He didn't ask for details. "Send me the names, address if you have it. I'll call you back in an hour." I sent everything. Greg's full name, the company, his mother's address, the house in the small town, even Rachel's files. My hands were shaking as I hit send. An hour later, he called back. "You were right to be nervous." My heart jumped. "What did you find?" "Greg Thompson has no business registered under his name in Illinois, or anywhere. But he does have a record. Sealed civil suits in Wisconsin and Michigan, both withdrawn, both by women." My mouth went dry. "Names?" "One matches what you sent. Lisa Howard. The other's redacted. He also used the name Robert Glenn. Same birth date, same face on an ID from a canceled passport application." I gripped the phone. "What about his mother?" Michael hesitated. "That's where it gets interesting. Margaret Thompson legally changed her last name 20 years ago. Her original name was Margaret Glenn." "Glenn?" "Yeah. She's been using her son's alias as her maiden identity. Looks like she helps him move between states, keeps his paperwork clean. Most of his fake businesses are registered under her address, then dissolved within 6 months." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. "So she's part of it." "She's half of it," he said quietly. "He's the front. She's the system." I couldn't breathe. Michael continued. "You said there was another woman, Xenia?" "Yes, she's missing." He exhaled sharply. "Then we're already late. If they think she could talk, she's in danger. I closed my eyes. Can you find her? I'll try. I'll need 24 hours. Don't confront Greg. Don't call him. And whatever you do, don't go to that house again. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Okay. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window watching headlights slide across the wall. My apartment felt smaller, colder. Every sound made me flinch. Around midnight, I saw a car parked across the street. Lights off, no movement, just there. I told myself it was nothing, until it started showing up again. The next night, and the one after. Same car, same spot. Laura wanted me to move in with her, but I refused. If I run, I lose control, I said. You don't have control, she snapped. He does. Maybe she was right, but something in me, the part my grandmother raised, refused to hide. The next day, Michael called. You were right about the missing woman. Xenia isn't missing. She's gone underground. What? She checked into a motel 2 towns away under a fake name, used cash, left after a day. The clerk remembered her because she was crying. That's all I have so far. Then she's alive. For now. My relief lasted a few seconds before fear replaced it. Can you track her down again? I'm trying, but there's something else. What? Greg's been in contact with a woman named Diana Mason. She's listed as his partner in multiple bank transfers. She's the one wiring funds between his shell companies. Who is she? Cousin. At least that's what the documents say. Same address as Margaret's sister. It's all one network, Clara. Mother, cousin, son. They've been doing this for years. Every time the heat rises, they change names and start over. I pressed a hand to my chest. And the women? They disappear. Some file reports, most don't. You're the first one who's connecting the dots. I stared at the wall. So what do I do now? Stay calm. Pretend nothing's wrong. Let him come to you. I'll be watching. Watching? I've already got your building covered. If he shows up unannounced, we'll know. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of safety. But safety is fragile when you're living inside someone else's lie. The next evening, Greg called. I feel like you're avoiding me, he said softly. Just busy. He laughed. You can't be too busy for your fiancé. Dinner tomorrow. My place. Every instinct screamed no, but I said yes. Michael texted right after. Go, but keep your phone open. I'll track the call. When I arrived, Greg's apartment looked immaculate. Candles, soft music, dinner waiting. He poured wine, smiled. I missed you. I forced a smile. Me too. We ate. He talked about wedding details, plans, new beginnings, but under the surface, something in his tone had changed. Softer, slower, almost testing. Finally, he leaned forward. You've been quiet lately. Is there something I should know? My pulse spiked. No. Good. Because secrets destroy trust. He smiled faintly, and I wouldn't want us to start like that. He reached across the table and brushed a strand of hair from my face. His hand lingered a moment too long. That night, when I got home, Michael called. He knows you're suspicious. You need to prepare. For what? For when he realizes he's losing control. The next morning, I woke to another message, this time from a different number, unknown. Michael Reed doesn't scare us. I froze. Greg's smile, Margaret's house, the black car outside. They weren't just watching me, they were warning me. And I finally understood what Rachel meant when she said, he doesn't stop until you're broken, because he was about to prove it. The next morning, I woke to the smell of burning plastic. It took me a second to realize it was my nerves, the scent of fear and coffee in the same breath. My hands shook as I scrolled through my messages again. Unknown. Michael Reed doesn't scare us. The words glowed against the dark screen like a wound that wouldn't close. I wanted to believe it was just a prank, a coincidence, but I knew better. Greg had always been calm, calculated, polite. A man like that didn't send threats out of anger. He sent them out of strategy. I called Michael. They know about you. I figured, he said flatly. Your phone's probably cloned. They've done this before. Stay off texts for now. Should I go to the police? Not yet. Let me get something solid first. I've got people digging into their bank history. They're getting sloppy. Sloppy? I wanted to believe that. But Greg never struck me as the kind of man who got sloppy. Not until he wanted you to think he had. That evening, he called again. Dinner. 7. My place. No excuses this time. His tone wasn't a question. It was a command wrapped in a smile. Michael told me to go, to keep my phone open in my bag, recording. I agreed, though my stomach felt like lead. When I arrived, the apartment lights were dim. Candles flickered, soft jazz played, a bottle of wine already open. It looked romantic, the kind of scene meant to disarm you. Greg appeared from the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, a towel over his shoulder. You look nervous, he said with a grin. I'm fine. Good. I made pasta. Your favorite. I sat down slowly. You didn't have to. Of course I did. I take care of the people I love. He poured wine, then leaned forward. You've been distant. Is there something we need to clear up? No. Clara. His voice softened. I'm not stupid. You've been asking questions, talking to people. Who's been filling your head with nonsense? My throat tightened. What are you talking about? He smiled. You're not a good liar, but that's one of the things I like about you. I felt the walls close in. Greg, you're scaring me. He tilted his head. Why would I do that? He stood, walked to the window, closed the blinds, then turned back to me. I know about the investigator, Michael Reed. You really thought I wouldn't find out? My breath caught. How? He shrugged. You used your work email to contact him. Rookie mistake. I gripped the edge of the table. What do you want from me? He smiled faintly. Nothing you haven't already promised. I just need you to stop digging. Focus on us. Us? He came closer, his voice low. You and me. The future. The business we'll build together. You don't have to work anymore. I'll handle everything. It sounded sweet, but every syllable reeked of control. What happened to Xenia? I asked suddenly. His face didn't change. Who? You know who. He laughed softly. You're listening to ghosts again. There's no Xenia, just people who want to ruin what we have. I stood up. You can stop pretending. He moved closer, blocking the door. Pretending? I've been building a life for you, while you run around talking to strangers. I know what you did to Lisa, to Rachel. His jaw tightened. They were mistakes. They didn't understand how I work. You do. I'm not like them. He smiled, a small, chilling curve of the lips. You're right. You're smarter. That's why you'll stay. The air went still. I realized in that moment that he wasn't angry. He was calculating, adjusting. He'd lost control of the narrative, and now he was rewriting it in real time. My phone, hidden in my bag, vibrated once. Michael's silent signal that he was outside. Greg noticed my glance. Expecting someone? No. He walked toward the table, poured himself more wine. You know, I really didn't want it to end like this. End like what? He looked at me over the glass, eyes flat. Messy. Before I could speak, a knock echoed through the room. Hard. Sharp. Greg froze. Another knock. Chicago police. Open up. For a moment, time stopped. Then Greg smiled again. Wider. Colder. You called them? I didn't. Then your little investigator did. He grabbed my wrist hard enough to make me gasp. Listen to me, Clara. Don't say a word. You tell them anything and you'll regret it. The knocking grew louder. Mr. Thompson, open the door. Greg let go, straightened his shirt, walked to the door calmly, and opened it. 2 officers stepped in, followed by Michael. Greg's charm switched back on instantly. Officers, what's this about? Michael spoke first. Fraud investigation. We have evidence linking you to multiple identities and bank accounts. Greg laughed, shaking his head. "This is ridiculous. Someone's setting me up." Michael ignored him and handed a folder to one of the officers. "Search warrant." Margaret's voice came from the hallway. I hadn't even noticed her enter. "There must be some mistake," she said, clutching her purse. The officers started moving through the apartment. Greg turned to me. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "You did this." I didn't answer. He smiled faintly. "You think this ends me? It never ends. People like you always think they're saving someone. You're not." Michael nodded toward the door. "Clara, step outside." As I walked past, Greg leaned close enough to whisper, "You'll miss me." Outside, the air was cold and clean. I could hear him still talking behind me, calm, confident, like a man who believed the world couldn't touch him. Michael put a hand on my shoulder. "You're safe now." But even as he said it, I wasn't sure, because men like Greg don't vanish with a warrant. They wait, they rebuild, they come back. And somewhere in the distance, as the sirens faded, I could still hear his voice. Calm, certain, unbroken. Greg's arrest didn't feel real at first. One moment, he was standing in his apartment, calm and untouchable, talking like a man who'd already rehearsed his defense. The next, handcuffs, flashing lights, police voices echoing down the hallway. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt empty. Margaret screamed as they took him. "You don't understand. My son's the victim here." Her voice cracked, half fury, half panic. No one listened. Michael's team moved fast, seizing files, computers, hard drives. I sat in the corridor, shaking. He knelt beside me. "He's in custody. We'll hold him on fraud until we get the other victims to testify." I nodded, but my thoughts were somewhere else. Xenia, Rachel, Lisa, were they watching the same news tonight, whispering finally? Or were they hiding, too afraid to celebrate? That night, I couldn't stay at my apartment. Laura picked me up, drove me to her place in silence. "Sleep," she said softly. "You're safe now." But sleep never came. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Unknown. "Safe? You really think that's how this works?" My chest went cold. I woke Laura. She read the text, frowned. "Could be his mother. She's furious." I nodded. "Or someone helping him." Michael arrived 2 hours later. "We've got protective detail watching the building. They can't touch you." I showed him the message. He sighed. Margaret's still out there, and Diana Mason, the so-called cousin. We found traces of her name in 3 accounts tied to Greg. She's not hiding. What does that mean? It means she's still running things while he's in custody, and she's not happy about you. By morning, the news broke. Local businessmen arrested for large-scale financial fraud. Greg's face on every site. The comments were brutal, calling him a predator, a manipulator. But part of me knew it wouldn't last. People like Greg don't stay behind bars long. They know how to make lies sound like logic. That afternoon, the first sign came. A delivery at Laura's door. No sender listed. Inside, a white box with a single photo. Me sitting at a cafe. Yesterday. Smiling at Michael. On the back, a note written in neat blue ink. "You think you're safe because he's gone? He's not the only one who knows where you live." Laura's hands trembled. "We're calling the police." Michael arrived 10 minutes later, took one look at the box, and swore under his breath. That handwriting isn't his, it's hers, Margaret. They traced the delivery, dropped off at a local courier, paid in cash, no cameras. For the next few days, I lived under quiet surveillance. Unmarked car outside the building, plainclothes officers pretending to read newspapers in the lobby. Every night I double-locked the doors. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. On the 5th night, I woke to the faint click of my apartment intercom. Not the buzzer, the speaker. Someone was holding it down from outside. No voice, no words, just silence. It lasted 3 minutes, then stopped. The next morning, Michael called. Greg made bail. My heart stopped. What? His lawyer pushed through. Claimed lack of direct evidence. They're still investigating, but he's out. I whispered. So he's free? For now, but he's being watched. Watched. The word meant nothing. Men like Greg didn't need to follow you physically to ruin your life. They followed through fear. I started receiving emails from untraceable addresses, short messages. I forgive you. We could have built something beautiful. You'll regret this. Each one colder than the last. Michael set up filters. Police ran traces. Nothing stuck. Then came the real blow. An email from my office HR. We've received a complaint regarding your involvement in an ongoing criminal investigation. Until further notice, you are suspended with pay. I stared at the screen in disbelief. He was already dismantling me from the inside out. Laura slammed her hand on the table. He's poisoning your name. I nodded numbly. That's what he does best. The next day, Margaret called. Her number flashed on my screen. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Mrs. Thompson? Her voice was soft, almost gentle. You destroyed my family, Clara. But that's okay. You've taken my son's freedom. Now I'll take yours. The line went dead. I dropped the phone, breathing hard. Michael filed another report. She's escalating, he said. They'll try to isolate you, ruin your job, your credibility. It's their way of control. Then what do? We fight back, legally. We've got enough to push new charges. You'll have to testify. I hesitated. I can't. You can, he said firmly. They count on fear. You don't give them that. That night, I packed a small bag, not because I planned to run, but because I finally understood the rules. Greg was free. His mother was watching. His partner was still out there. This wasn't over. Not yet. I stood at the window, staring at the dark street below. The same black car idled across the road, lights off. For a long time, neither of us moved. Then slowly the engine started, and the car drove away. I exhaled. For the first time in weeks, I felt something strange. Not peace, determination. If they wanted to play a long game, I could play longer. Morning came gray and soundless. I hadn't slept. The city below my window looked like it was holding its breath, and I was doing the same. Michael called at 9 sharp. You still good? Define good. He ignored the sarcasm. We've confirmed 3 accounts linked to Margaret and Diana Mason. One was opened last month, after Greg's arrest. They're already moving assets. So they're still working. They never stopped. He paused. Clara, I need you to listen. You're the only one who can tie the whole thing together. You met all of them. You have the timeline. The DA's office wants you to testify, but not yet. They want the bigger picture first. What bigger picture? The network. How far it goes. We've traced payments to fake consulting firms in 4 states. Someone higher up is laundering their money. I pressed my fingers to my temples. This was never just a family scam, was it? No, he said quietly. It's an operation, and Greg is just the salesman. For the first time since it began, I saw the truth clearly. Margaret wasn't covering for her son. He was covering for her. That realization hit harder than fear. By noon, Michael and his team set up a meeting with the DA's office. Laura came with me, holding my hand like a lifeline. Inside, the conference room smelled of burnt coffee and stress. 2 investigators showed slides, names, bank transfers, fake company seals. One slide made my heart stop. At the top, Glenn Associates Trust. Beneath it, Margaret's maiden name. She's been running this for almost 15 years, the prosecutor said. She recruits Greg to find new victims, uses Diana to manage documents, then funnels everything through shell accounts. When the pattern gets noticed, they dissolve and restart under a new name. Why not go after her directly? I asked. We're close, he said, but we need an insider to flip. That's where you come in. I frowned. I'm not one of them. No, he said, but he still thinks you could be. He'll reach out again. He always does. When he does, We'll be ready. The plan felt fragile, like glass. But I agreed. 2 days later, Greg called. It was past midnight. I let it ring twice before answering. Clara. His voice was calm, almost affectionate. I miss you. I didn't speak. He chuckled softly. Silent treatment. I get it. You're angry, but you don't understand. I was protecting us. By lying? By building a life. A real one. The money wasn't stolen. It was temporary borrowing. We just needed time. Time for what? For Margaret to finish the transfer. Then we could disappear. Start over. He spoke like a man describing a vacation, not a crime. Where is she now? I asked. He hesitated. Don't worry about her. I want to see you, I said quietly. Silence. Then, tomorrow, 10 p.m., same place. When the line went dead, I called Michael. He took the bait. The next night, I wore a wire. Laura begged me not to go. He's dangerous. I know, I said. That's why this ends tonight. The restaurant was almost empty. Greg was already there, sitting at a corner table, smiling like nothing had changed. You look beautiful, he said. I sat opposite him. You look free. He grinned. For now. We ordered coffee. He talked like old times, about us, the future, the lies he pretended were dreams. I waited, keeping my voice steady. Finally, I said, Margaret called me. His smile faltered. When? 2 days ago. She said I ruined everything. He leaned back slowly. Then you know she's angry. I think she's scared. He studied me. Scared of what? The truth, I said. For a second, his mask cracked. You don't know what you're talking about. I met his gaze. Then tell me. He exhaled, lowered his voice. Margaret's not the monster you think. She just understands power. The world takes from people like us. She learned to take back. You should have learned that too. That's what you tell yourself? That theft is revenge? He smiled sadly. Call it what you want. It works. The wire captured every word. Michael's team, listening from a van outside, had enough. But I wanted him to say it. All of it. So what happens now? I asked. You walk away, he said softly. You stay quiet and maybe I let you keep your little apartment. Otherwise. Otherwise what? He leaned forward. You end up like the others. A pause. Then I whispered, like Ksenia? His jaw tightened. You talk too much. He stood to leave. Before he could take a step, the door burst open. Michael and 2 officers rushed in. Greg froze as they surrounded him. The other customers looked up, startled. Michael's voice was steady. Gregory Robert Thompson, you're under arrest. Again. Greg turned to me. For the first time, I saw something unfamiliar in his eyes. Not charm, not arrogance. Fear. You recorded me, he said quietly. I didn't answer. He smiled, almost fondly. You're learning. They led him away, handcuffs glinting under the fluorescent light. I sat still, my coffee untouched, my hands shaking so hard the cup rattled. Michael approached. It's over. I stared at the empty doorway. No, I said softly. It's just beginning. Because even as Greg disappeared into the night, I knew Margaret was still out there, and somewhere, behind another name, another set of documents, another perfect smile, their business was still running. For almost 2 weeks, silence. No calls, no letters, no black car outside the window. The police said the recordings were enough for the prosecution. The DA's office promised that both Greg and Margaret would face federal charges this time. I tried to believe them. I even started leaving my phone in another room at night. A small rebellion against the habit of waiting for messages that never came. Then, on the 15th day, everything cracked again. I was on my way home from Laura's when I noticed a white envelope tucked under my windshield wiper. No postage. My name handwritten on the front. Clara. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No threats. No insults. Just a line. You didn't destroy me. You trained me." The handwriting was Greg's. I called Michael immediately. He arrived 20 minutes later, took the letter in gloved hands. "We'll test for prints, but this looks recent. He's out on conditional release. The court granted bail again." My knees almost gave out. "You're joking." He shook his head. "Federal charges take time." His lawyer spun the story, said the tape was manipulated, that you were coerced by investigators. Classic defense tactic, but we'll win eventually. "Eventually?" He hesitated. "We just have to keep you safe until trial." Safety. I was tired of that word. It sounded more like isolation. By evening, I packed a small overnight bag and drove to my late grandmother's old cabin 2 hours north, the one she'd left me years ago. I hadn't been there in forever, but it felt like the only place Greg wouldn't think to look. The first night was quiet. Too quiet. The forest pressed against the windows like a held breath. I made tea, lit a fire, tried to read. The silence should have felt peaceful, but it was heavy, the kind that listens back. At midnight, my phone buzzed. One new voicemail, no number displayed. I pressed play. Static for the first few seconds, then his voice. Low, steady, too close to the mic. "Do you remember our first dinner, Clara? You said you loved quiet places. I found one." I dropped the phone. Michael traced the call the next morning. Prepaid SIM, turned off immediately after, probably somewhere within 30 miles. So he's nearby. He didn't answer. He assigned 2 local deputies to patrol the road near the cabin. For 3 nights, nothing happened. The 4th night, I woke to the smell of smoke. My heart stopped. I thought the cabin was on fire. But it wasn't the house. It was the woods. Someone had set a pile of leaves burning just outside the back door, close enough to leave black scorch marks across the porch. I grabbed my phone, ran outside, stomping it out with a blanket. The flames were small, controlled. It wasn't an accident. It was a message. By the time the deputies arrived, it was already out. One of them shook his head. "No footprints. Whoever did it knew what they were doing." Michael drove up the next morning. "He's testing you," he said. "He wants to see if you'll run." "I won't." "Good, because the trial date's coming. He'll try to shake you before then. He always does." We spent the day going over testimony. Every conversation, every transfer, every file. I had to relive every moment, every lie, every fake smile. By the time Michael left, the sun had set. The forest turned black again. I locked the doors, checked the windows twice, and tried to sleep. But around midnight, the phone rang again. Unknown number. I didn't answer. A minute later, another message alert. "Look outside." My breath caught. Slowly, I pulled the curtain back. At first, I saw nothing. Just trees, mist, moonlight. Then my headlights blinked once. Someone was sitting in my car. I couldn't see the face, just the faint glow of a cigarette inside the dark silhouette. I grabbed the phone, whispered, "Michael, he's here." He answered immediately. "Lock the doors, stay down, we're 10 minutes out." The figure in the car didn't move, didn't open the door, just sat there, smoke curling from the open window. 5 minutes later, the cigarette flared again, then fell, a tiny orange spark on the ground. The driver's door opened. I caught a glimpse of a coat, short dark hair, a familiar shape. Then the engine started, and the car rolled slowly down the dirt road into the woods. When the police arrived, he was gone. Michael's jaw clenched. He's daring us. He knows we can't prove it's him. I stared at the tire marks in the mud. He's not running anymore. He's circling. That night, I didn't sleep at all. Every creak in the cabin made me flinch. I sat with a flashlight and my grandmother's old Bible on my lap. Not because I believed in protection, but because it was heavy, real, something to hold. Just before dawn, another text came through. "Greg, you always loved old houses. Funny, I do too." No threat, no anger, just intimacy. The kind that only comes from someone who knows how to crawl into your mind and rearrange the furniture. Michael moved me out the next morning, back to the city into a secure apartment under police watch. But even there, safety felt like a rumor. Every knock on the door sounded like his. Every reflection in the window looked like him standing behind me. That night, I dreamed of my grandmother again, the same dream from the beginning. She was standing at the door whispering, "You've seen enough, Clara, but it isn't over until you stop looking back." I woke up shaking, whispering the same words over and over, because I finally understood what she meant. It wasn't the house I had to leave behind. It was the fear. The day of the trial began like any other, gray, quiet, cold. But for the first time in months, I wasn't shaking. I'd already lived through the worst he could do. There was nothing left for Greg to take. The courthouse smelled of metal detectors and burnt coffee. Cameras lined the steps outside, flashing as we walked in. I kept my eyes low. Michael walked beside me, expression unreadable. "Stay calm. You're the last witness. He'll try to rattle you." I won't give him the satisfaction. Inside, the courtroom felt smaller than I'd imagined. Greg sat at the defense table in a crisp gray suit, hair perfectly combed, no handcuffs, no sign of the man who whispered threats in the dark, just a model citizen playing his role. He turned once, caught my eye, and smiled, slow, deliberate. A performance for the jury, for me, for himself. Margaret sat behind him, pale but composed, her pearl earrings shining under the fluorescent lights. Diana Mason wasn't there. She'd already disappeared again, probably under a new name. When the prosecutor called my name, the room blurred for a second. I felt every heartbeat echo in my throat. They swore me in. I sat down, palms pressed flat against the table. "Miss Mitchell," the prosecutor began, "can you tell the court how you first met the defendant?" I took a breath. At my office, he came in with a file of invoices, said he was a supplier. He smiled the way he always does, like the world already belongs to him. I told them everything, how he'd charmed me, how he'd lied, how he'd built a house of paper and called it love. Every detail came out clean, precise, factual. My voice didn't shake once. Then the defense attorney stood. "Miss Mitchell, you admit you were in a romantic relationship with my client. Would it be fair to say emotions were involved?" "Yes. And emotions can cloud judgment, can't they?" "Only when the other person isn't wearing a mask," I said quietly. He frowned. "You claim Mr. Thompson deceived you, yet you continued seeing him after you suspected inconsistencies." "Because I needed proof. People like him rely on doubt. I wanted to see how far the lie went." He smirked. "So you played detective?" "No," I said. "I played survivor." The room went still. Even the judge glanced up. The attorney cleared his throat, shuffled papers, and sat down. Greg smiled again, but there was something different in it now. Strain. His eyes darted to the jury, searching for sympathy that wasn't there. When it was over, the prosecutor presented the evidence. Bank transfers, fake contracts, the wire recording of his confession. The voices filled the room. His charm, his menace, his calm manipulation laid bare for strangers to dissect. Margaret's composure cracked. When Greg's voice said, "You end up like the others," she covered her face with her hands and whispered something no one could hear. The jury took less than 3 hours, guilty on all counts: fraud, conspiracy, coercion, identity theft. As the verdict was read, Greg leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. No outburst, no denial, just silence. When they led him away, he turned his head slightly. "You win," he mouthed. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like the end of a nightmare that left a scar too deep to celebrate. Margaret was charged next. She didn't resist. Maybe she finally understood the empire she'd built had no foundation left to stand on. Outside, the reporters swarmed. I said nothing. Michael handled them with the same blunt calm he always did. "Justice isn't a headline," he told one of them. "It's just cleanup." For me, cleanup meant starting over. I sold my apartment, quit my job, moved to a smaller place by the lake where no one knew my name. I cut my hair, changed my number, bought a dog. For the first few weeks, every time a car slowed near the house, I froze. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected his name. But the fear faded slowly, like smoke thinning after a fire. One evening, as I walked along the shore, the sun dipping low behind the water, I realized it had been a full week without checking the locks twice, a full week without replaying his voice in my head. Peace doesn't come all at once. It arrives in fragments. Quiet mornings, safe nights, the taste of coffee without shaking hands. I still dream about my grandmother sometimes. Always the same image. Her standing in the doorway, smiling now instead of warning, and I understand her words differently each time. Run from these people. She didn't just mean Greg. She meant the kind of people who feed on trust, who turn love into leverage, the kind who smile as they burn the floor beneath you. Michael called a few months later. You should know, sentencing went through. 15 years, no parole. Margaret got 8. I thanked him quietly. It's over then. Officially, yes. But even as I said goodbye, I knew over wasn't the right word. Some stories don't end. They just stop hurting as much. I kept one thing from it all, the flash drive Rachel had given me. It sits in a small box on my bookshelf next to a framed photo of my grandmother, a reminder of how lies look when they're written down. Sometimes I still get messages from strangers, women who say they saw the trial, that they recognized his face from another name, another state. They thank me for speaking out. I tell them the same thing every time. You don't fight monsters by becoming one. You fight by staying exactly who you are. Because that's what he could never understand. He thought control was power. But power is what's left when control is gone. And mine, finally, was freedom. Some warnings come too late. Clara was lucky hers came in time. If you believe that even one voice, one dream, can save a life, don't leave this story in silence. Subscribe for more true stories that reveal what hides behind ordinary lives. Leave a comment. Would you have listened to the dream?